Hello, good evening. It's that time of the week again. Yes, indeed. It's Tuesday, it's 9 o'clock. Yes, I wasn't here last week. Did you miss me? I was extremely busy down in London the weekend before and up in Scotland last week. And it was a little busy last week. And this weekend I'm in Bristol working. Yeah. So hopefully I should be seeing Mr. Sutton for a beer on Saturday. Who knows? Who knows? But yes, got all sorts of what have you coming up. But I thought I'd start before the titles this week with the sad news about Mr. Rick Mayall, who died yesterday. He was 56. It's not an age, is it? I mean, I'm only 9 years off that myself. And Rick was, in my opinion, and the opinion of many, many people, a comic genius. And when I was at school, I grew up watching stuff like The Young Ones and Not the 9 O'Clock News. And that kind of led me to do what I did, because you may or may not know, but I used to be a comedy scriptwriter back in the day, in my 20s, yeah. And I used to write for Spitting Image and other shows, and it was the likes of Rick Mayall and Ben Elton and the Not the 9 O'Clock News team that made me want to write satire. And it was very sad yesterday that he passed away, and such a young age. So R.I.P. Mr. Mayall. He is gone, but his work will continue on video. And I would love to have shown you something tonight, but with the copyright restrictions, we would have got hammered, so best not. But go on and have a look at some of his early work. Kevin Turvey, for instance, from Kick at the 80s, early Young Ones, Filthy Rich and Cat Flap, New Statesman, it goes on and on and on. The man was a genius, and he will be missed, yes. Anyway, that being aside, and you know, a bit of indulgence there, but I had to get that out because he was a mega idol of mine when I was starting off. Let's kick the show off, yeah, because we're going to talk about e-cigs tonight. We've got some news about cigs as well. I've got some footage from the last 2 weeks from a BBC documentary that you may or may not have seen. I've taken some little snippets from both episodes of that, and Kat asked for some comments on Facebook earlier this week, and I've got those comments as well. So we're looking at that in the second half. But to kick off the first half, let's have these.
Vaper Scene is proudly sponsored by Health E-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and e-liquid.
Yes, it is Tuesday, and it's in fact Tuesday the 10th of June 2014. Yes, and I'm looking out of my window and it is still light. I like that, it's very good. I like the fact that it's still light at 9 o'clock, and it'll be still light when I finish, which is even better. So we've got a few months of this before those dark nights come back to us, and in the meantime I'm going to be sweating in this studio because it is mega hot, and if I open my window I'll have cats jumping in. We don't want that, no, because they'll be knocking things over and meowing quite a lot. Yes, we don't want to do that. So yeah, you're watching Vaper Scene this week, and apologies for my not being here last week, but as I said pre-show, it was a little bit busy. I was down in London and then in Scotland, so it was a busy week, and this week I'm all over the place again, and at the weekend in Bristol, but I'm sure I can bring you something next Tuesday. Yeah, why not? I did manage to pick up a fine in London for being on a box junction for about 2 feet, which kindly dropped into my letterbox this week. Yes, thanks to the CCTV operator at that particular box junction, he decided they were going to take a picture of my car 2 feet into a box junction. But there you go. We'll see what happens, because I'm going to appeal it. Anyway, £65, that's a joke, isn't it? Anyway, moving along. What we got for this week? Well, we're going to start with a couple of US stories, and I have this one for you. This is from the Examiner, and I forget what state it's in. Pennsylvania. Yeah. Daly City amends smoking law to include e-cigarettes. And it says, in a decision hailed by the local activists, the Daly City City Council, try saying that with a mouthful of gobstoppers, has amended its smoking regulations to prohibit the use of electronic cigarettes in areas where smoking is not allowed. And I'm going to go to the next slide, because it tells you a little bit more there. Under the new law, smoking of e-cigarettes, I wish they would stop saying smoking, because you don't smoke an e-cigarette. You don't set it alight, so how can there be smoke? I'm going to just say the use of e-cigarettes, also known as vaping, within 20 feet of a building exit or entrance used by the public or any operable window of an indoor area is prohibited. The ban also applies to places of employment that are not significant tobacco retailers. So what they're saying there is, if it's not a cigarette shop that also sells e-cigs, you can't vape in it or vape outside it, which is very strange. And I'll just nip to the next slide. Vice President of Programs Karen Lecavoli said studies have disproved the notion that e-cigarettes are an effective smoking cessation tool, and claim their proliferation is an attempt by the tobacco industry to roll back the clock on the tobacco control movement. Really? E-cigarettes have only just popped up in the last 5 years, Licavoli noted. Cancer can take 10 to 15 years to show up. Yes. And at the end there, if it's something that needs to be studied or discussed, then by all means, let's have that conversation. I'd like to hear what's going on, but I'm not hearing people in the community saying they don't like these places. So ban it and then ask questions. Really? It's like shoot first, ask questions later, isn't it? Yeah, moving on. I'm not even going to say anything. Moving on. This was also in the US press. This is from the Press Democrat. Supervisors consider restrictions on e-cigarette use. And it says there, W/video, with video. And here is that video. It's about 35 seconds.
FDA may be looking to ban the sale of e-cigs to minors, but marketers and advertisers don't have a problem going after kids. Ads for traditional cigarettes have been banned from television since 1971, but e-cigs are fair game. The number of teens exposed to e-cigarette ads has exploded, increasing the likelihood that they'll one day try smoking. That's according to a study published in the journal Pediatrics. Researchers found youth exposure to e-cigarette ads increased by 256% from 2011 to 2013, exposing them to 24 million U.S. kids.
Yes, I was having a little vape there. It's the whole kids thing again, isn't it? I'm just looking in chat there, and Very Boring says, and I love this, stupidity takes seconds to turn up. And that is so true. And Max Strum, it's nothing to do with the tobacco industry. Correct. Liam D. Vaper, normal crap then. Yeah, I kind of agree with that, to be fair. Yeah, it's the same old crap, different day. It's a bit like one of those sandwiches when you take a bite on a different day and it still tastes crap. Yeah. And talking about Mr. Glantz, as I saw his name in chat there, Mr. Glantz has decided to try and rebuff all the points that was in the letter that 53 professionals signed and sent to the WHO. And I'll give the team the link if they haven't already got it, because I got the link from Kat, so we can go into chat, because it is a long document. But some comments on the May 26 letter from public health specialists to WHO Director General Margaret Chan. And this was submitted by S. Glantz this Monday. Yeah. Clive Bates, a private consultant and well-established e-cigarette advocate, has organised a remarkable letter to WHO Director General on 26 May 2014, signed by 53 public health specialists, Mr. Glantz, criticising WHO for not enthusiastically embracing e-cigarettes as harm reduction technique. The most notable thing about the letter, which contains several sweeping scientific statements, is that it does not contain a single reference to the scientific literature, particularly the substantial literature that does not support the political position the letter advocates. Here are a few broad reactions before getting into the specifics. Well, let's not go to that one. Let's go to the next page. Here are some comments on the specific assertions in the Bates letter. And I really don't like that term, Mr. Glantz. If you're going to say something about somebody, you should say assertions in the letter from Mr. Bates, not the Bates letter. I think that's really rude. Sorry, that's my opinion. Tobacco harm reduction is part of the solution, not part of the problem. It could take a significant contribution to reducing the global burden of non-communicable diseases caused by smoking, and do so much faster than conventional strategies. If regulators treat low-risk nicotine products as traditional tobacco products and seek to reduce their use without recognising their potential as a low-risk alternative to smoking, they are improperly defining them as part of the problem. And he says to that, to date, there is no evidence that this potential to be part of the solution will be realised, particularly in the face of actual patterns of e-cigarette promotion and use which slow rapid penetration of the youth market. Depressed cigarette cessation amongst all smokers and high levels of dual use of cigarettes and e-cigarettes among both adults and adolescents. Now, I can see that Kat's put the link into chat. And so I'm not going to go through the rest of it because it's going to take ages to go through. And there is pages of this stuff. I suggest you have a read, have some extremely strong juice with you, and if you do dual fuel, have a bit of each, because it is our right to be able to vape and to be able to smoke. And if people do use both, that is their choice as an adult. And if it's the whole thing about the children, let's just get off this stupid cycle of it. Think about the children. We are thinking about the children, Mr. Glantz, because we want to be around longer for our children. And the longer that people use conventional lit tobacco, the shorter time they're going to be around for their children. Why won't they get this message? Is it because the letter had so much stuff that was against his principles? He just wants to rebuff every single point. Who knows? And I would love to see what Clive has to say about what Mr. Glantz has had to say. Yeah. This is Mr. Glantz, if you didn't already know. Yeah. You can tweet him at Prof. Glantz. Yes. He's a professor of medicine and director of the Center for Tobacco Control Research and Education at the University of California, San Francisco. At Prof. Glantz. Will he get tweeted? I wonder if he will. There he is again. Yeah. At Prof. Glantz. Yeah, I'm not going to say that, whip it up. I'm not going to say what Whip's just put in chat because we have to be careful that we don't say anything that might be taken as slander, libel, whatever. We can say the truth, but we can't say things like that on here. You can say it in there. It's up to you. You're perfectly free to express yourself in chat. Unfortunately, we have to be careful what we actually say. But yes, I probably agree with you in a personal thing, but I'm not saying it. Anyway, yes. So that was Mr. Glantz, and it'd be interesting to see if you keep an eye on Clive's blog, clivebates.com, and see what Clive comes back with on that one. So let's go to the next piece I have. Yes. Now this is to do with Australia. Has plain cigarette packaging backfired? The Mail Online questions. Australian figures show 59 million more cigarettes were sold during the first year of ban on branded packs. Now, this data was obtained by the Australian, has revealed in 2013, the first full year since the plain packaging was introduced, Australians purchased 59 million more cigarettes and roly-roll equivalents than they did in 2012. And the next picture that comes up, I have censored. I've censored the pictures because they have some rather graphic images on, and I thought I'm not going to put them on. Plain packaging laws came into effect in December 2012 under Labour Health Minister Nicola Roxon as part of an attempt to discourage smoking, which claims approximately 15,000 lives in Australia each year. The extra 59 million cigarettes purchased last year represent a 0.3% increase in sales and a reversal of the broader trend of tobacco sales, which have dropped 15.6% in the last 4 years. But Jeff Rogert, Chief Executive of the Australian Association of Convenience Stores, said convenience store owners were reporting increased sales, which may be related to increased cigarette sales. And what is apparently happening is people are going in and asking what the cheapest brand is or what the cheapest fags are, and they are buying those. And it's also, they are believing, going to increase the amount of counterfeit cigarettes, because if you're going to make some counterfeit cigarettes, it's a lot easier to counterfeit a plain package than it is to do all the right typefaces and ink colours and everything else, isn't it? Figure that one out. Yeah. So that was the little bit of news story I have. I do have a couple of other ones, but I'm not going to do those today. Yeah, those packages, Whip, they're not plain. They've got the warnings on and the pictures, but they don't have the brand names. That's the thing. And the pictures are pretty gruesome, I have to say. But then when I smoked, I used to look at those pictures and just take my fags out, and you know, in fact I took my tobacco out of the pouch and put it into my tin. So, you know, who looks at the packet, at the actual the pictures? Nobody. Does making them plain and just putting pictures on change people's point of view? I very much doubt it. You know, I used to smoke Marlboro Red or Marlboro Menthol, sometimes Marlboro Lights, and I stuck to that brand because I liked the taste of that particular brand. Other brands are of course available and had a different taste, just like we use different e-juices because they've got different tastes. So it's each to their own. So I would go in and I'd say I want 20 of them, or I want 50 grams of that. I didn't say, oh, they look nice, I'll have some of those. No. Who does that? Yes, craziness. Anyway, and of course they're all behind doors, as they are in many shops in this country now. They'll be just behind doors so you can't even see them. So what's the point in putting them in plain packaging if you can't see them anyway, because they're behind a door? Makes no sense, does it? Anyway, there you go. So I thought we'll have a bit of levity after that stuff. And I've had this video on my playlist for, I don't know, 3 weeks, a month maybe. And I keep planning to put it on, but I always run out of time. So before I go to the ad break, I'm going to put this on. And this is from the archives, way back in the archives. And it's Mr. Dawn, who's out and about. Check out the hair. Shame he's not watching. I hope he watches it on the catch-up. Check out the hair. It's marvellous. Enjoy.
You know, sometimes you think you're being very clever going on location to do a review. But when you're doing a review of something that looks like a cigarette, you can discover that it comes and bites you on the bum, as you are about to see. Get bitten on the bum, then turn it round and see what you can do. Catch a glance at this, I'm sure you're going to love it. Whether that's because it's menthol, actually doesn't taste very nice for me, because I'm not a menthol.
You can smoke inside here.
Sorry?
You can smoke inside.
Come here.
I know.
I'm not.
I need to try the one.
I'm not smoking.
I remember.
Do you want to have a blast?
I remember.
Go and have a blast.
How do you, from here?
Aye, just suck it. What do you reckon?
It's alright.
So have another one, block yourself.
No, it's alright. What flavor is it? Mint.
It's menthol, yeah.
You go like normal flavor. You go like.
I actually, try that one. You need to press that button.
And
then suck.
all the bus. All I need all the.
Keep it held down, yeah. That better.
It's alright.
Of the two, which would you prefer?
There's a one.
The big one. I might give you a present. I've got a throwaway one that I'll give you and you can have on one condition.
I was talking about it with the manager, and she says that they're doing this kind of promotion in Nasdaq. All the stuff, you know, who like wants to give up smoking. They're trying to keep that one instead. You know what I mean? That's what I was talking about. I was mentioning to her, you know, I know our customers that come to the bar, and how much is it?
That one is with its full kit. It's 35 quid. Now this is a portable charging carry case, and the idea behind it is that you screw, this is the battery, that's where the power comes from. You screw that into the case, which my fingers are way too big to do anything sensible with. You press this little button, when the red light comes on, the battery's charging, and this is what's called a cartomizer. You can refill them, you can put extra juice in, but that should be worth a small number of cigarettes, yeah? And that's it. When the light goes out, you're ready to go again. And actually I'm reviewing it today, I'm testing it out to see how good it is. So far it's alright, but if you just let me run up to the car, I'll bring you a disposable, and it's my gift to you.
Me, I usually smoke camel without filter.
Okay. Quite strong. Right. This is it's called, this one's a free G, but actually this is from River Road 2. So let's put it together. Yeah, I'll put this one together for you. You can try it. Okay. There you go. Then just suck it as you would. Good long drags. Quite nutty.
Yeah, I cannot find the camera without filter. What I do, I get this and I do like this.
Take the filter off.
And I smoke.
Yeah.
And I feel good.
Yeah.
Beautiful. 3 o'clock in the morning, 4, whatever. Ciao, Brazilian, first time. How are you? We having a party of this.
I'm away from the food.
Yeah, Alex, what is the cigarette?
Yeah, let's go. You should see it, honestly, really and truly. If you've got the wherewithal to do it, get yourself 3 or 4 of these. In fact, vendors, I think you should do a 10-pack of these and do it at, I don't know, say 20 quid, if you can afford to do it, on the basis that folks who are already e-smokers, who are already using e-cigs, you've seen what's just happened. And we've just given a couple of those away for the lads that run this place to try. And you heard as well, you can't smoke in here. And then we've shown them what we're doing, and suddenly, well, that's because that thing looks too much like tar. Sorry, we wouldn't have had that problem if we'd all been sitting with these. And in fact, when they saw you had your GG out, suddenly, oh yes, I remember. So there's something there. If it looks like a cigarette, it might cause you bother. If it doesn't look like a cigarette, it probably won't. Not really much more you can say than that. See if we can convert a few more. Platinum. It's good, this. I'm loving it. Latte, caramel in, RY4 in a mug, it's gorgeous.
Yes, that was Mr. Dawn and Kat and Sav in a little cafe with a bit of filming going on there. And I noticed at the end, the coffee with the caramel in it. How many times has Dave Dawn lambasted me for my caramel cappuccinos? It looked awfully nice. And Kat said there was about 2 hours of that. Okay. And Sav was eating cake. But yeah, what Dave said there, and that was quite a while ago, still rings true today. You know, if you get pulled up about it, show them, give them a go. And if you've got something that doesn't look like a cigarette, more the better, really, because the more of these that get out there, more Gen 2, Gen 3s that get out there, the better, really. Right, time is moving on. So we're going to go to the ads, and when we come back, I've got some of that footage from the last 2 weeks from the BBC documentary, and some rather marvellous comments. Yeah, so I will see you in 2.
Vaper Scene is proudly sponsored by Health e-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and e-liquid.
iVaper and iVaper Elixir, based in Yorkshire, for your e-cig needs. That's iVaper.co.uk and iVaper-elixir.co.uk. iVaper and iVaper-elixir.co.uk, proud sponsors of Vapourtrails.tv.
Now it's back to Vaper Scene on Vapourtrails TV. Vaper Scene is proudly sponsored by Health e-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and e-liquid.
And we're back in the room. Hello. Yeah, just looking at chat there. There's loads of good stuff in the Vapourtrails TV archive. Just go on our webpage and have a look. There's all sorts of stuff in there. Be it Mr. Sutton boiling atties, or Dave Cat and Sav eating cake and drinking coffee in a cafe in Whitley Bay. I will probably have another delve in there over the next few shows and see what comes up. Yeah. So moving on. Over the last couple of Thursdays on BBC Two, there was a documentary about cigarettes, tobacco industry, and it touched a little bit in the first show about e-cigarettes, but more so in the second part, which was last Thursday. And I was in, where was I last Thursday? Glasgow. And I couldn't watch Dave's show, so I actually watched the second half as it was playing out, and I've dumped a few of the clips down for you. A little bit jerky in places because of how it gets pulled off when I'm creating the videos, but it's not too bad. And then when we come back from that, I've got some comments that have been sent to Kat. Kat asked earlier this week for some comments on our Facebook page, and I have some of those. So grab a drink and enjoy. See you in a minute.
For decades, the industry told barefaced lies about the growing medical evidence. They were exposed 20 years ago when tobacco senior executives gave evidence before the United States Congress.
If you raise your right hand, do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
The chief executives of the world's major tobacco companies stood up in front of Congress and basically lied about the addictiveness and harm of their products.
Yes or no? Do you believe nicotine is not addictive?
I believe nicotine is not addictive.
And they lied knowing that they were lying.
I believe nicotine is not addictive.
I believe that nicotine is not addictive.
And deliberately, I think, misleading people.
I believe that nicotine is not addictive.
And I too believe that nicotine is not addictive.
It's a long journey back from making that kind of statement publicly to being trusted and respected by the public, and especially the public health community.
Such attempts to conceal the truth also had a profound effect on the lives of millions, and ironically, those who worked in the industry too. Today, British American Tobacco has a very different view. Do you believe that cigarette smoking is harmful to health?
Absolutely, and British American Tobacco is clear about that.
Why did you deny it for so many years?
Well, I can't speak about the past. I'd like to talk about now.
Well, no, the past. One of your issues is trust. The reason why your industry is not trusted is because it lied about the medical evidence for so many years.
The point is that that was then and this is now. I prefer to talk about now and the future.
But you're evading my question. Until you accept that, why should people believe what you say now?
Well, I think the key moment was the day that we came out and we admitted the link between smoking and health. And what I am most interested in is plotting a pathway for this business over the next decades, over the next 100 years.
For decades, cancer was the forbidden word in BAT's research labs in Southampton. The killer disease went by the secret codename Zephyr. BAT's current scientific director speaks a different language. Hard truth has replaced deception and lies.
So this is a chart which lays out the 100 known toxicants in cigarette smoke. You're inhaling them into your lung, and that's why smoking presents such a risk to health.
Which are the carcinogens in that top
So
10?
carcinogens would be substances like benzopyrene. There are things like cadmium, lead and mercury.
It's unprecedented that a tobacco company now makes such a frank admission on television.
Cigarette smoking is a cause of real and serious diseases. Cancer, particularly cancer of the lung, heart disease, so stroke and heart attack, and respiratory disease such as bronchitis and emphysema. And for a lifetime smoker, about half of them can expect to die prematurely as a result of their cigarette smoking. And 9 of which...
The industry has changed, but only after decades of unrelenting pressure that has severely restricted their ability to market its product. Around the world, the battle continues, and the anti-tobacco lobby is already thinking of where to strike next.
We always have to keep looking forward. You need to keep the momentum up, reducing the number of retail outlets, reducing access, more tax increases. The louder the tobacco industry scream, the more effective you know the measure's going to be.
We need to think about smoking in public places and extending those policies into areas where children go.
How much would you like to see a packet of 20 cost?
3 times what it costs now. And talking to smokers, many will say, if you made it £20 a pack, I'd stop smoking.
But the industry now thinks it may be able to remove the stigma that has long been attached to its business. It's developing new ways of delivering nicotine that could save millions of lives. BAT calls its strategy harm reduction, based on its acceptance that conventional cigarettes kill. It's now developing a range of much safer products based on nicotine and not tobacco that produces the deadly carcinogens when burned. BAT's first electronic or e-cigarette is already on the market.
I think this is a hugely important moment for the tobacco industry. I think that the future is about tobacco harm reduction. It's about providing a range of alternative nicotine products to consumers, whilst conventional cigarettes will remain the mainstay of our business for a long time.
BAT's factory in Germany is still producing around 200 million cigarettes a day. E-cigarettes may be a foretaste of the future, as we'll see in the next programme, but in the UK they're only a small part of the present. Critics say e-cigarettes are simply a smokescreen to divert attention from the massive harm that the majority of its business still causes.
Aren't you trying to rebrand yourselves?
British American Tobacco is committed to a progressive future. I think we are different because we are at the forefront of driving that tobacco harm reduction future. And I understand that we are indeed the problem. That is no reason for us not to be part of the solution.
I find it remarkable to see how much the public stance of the tobacco industry, and BAT in particular, has changed. But the glaring paradox remains. How can an industry that openly admits its product kills over 5 million of its consumers every year carry on producing and marketing cigarettes?
I think for a company that sells a product that kills half of its users and continues to promote that product around the world as widely as it possibly can, it's a public relations joke.
It's far from a PR stunt. It's a very, very clear commercial intent. It's the right thing to do for society. It's the right thing to do commercially for our shareholders.
British American Tobacco say that they are now committed to harm reduction.
Now, when BAT stand up and say, you know, as of, say, 2, 3, 5 years from now, we're going to stop selling cigarettes because we're a socially responsible company, I'll believe them.
I'm a non-smoker and needed a guide to lead me through the haze of this bewildering new world.
Oliver. Hi. Peter.
Oliver Kershaw is the founder of an online forum dedicated to promoting the smoker's new accessory. He doesn't smoke regular cigarettes anymore. He gets his kick from inhaling nicotine vapor. That's why it's known as vaping.
I don't really know how to smoke, but I'd be interested just to try one.
Absolutely.
Just give me a lesson. Where's the nicotine in there?
The nicotine is contained within a small cartridge inside here. And as you puff on it, an automatic switch will feed through to a small heating coil, which will heat the solution that produces the vapor.
No, I'm not a smoker.
The range of devices is astonishing, from the classic cigarette to more exotic paraphernalia. They're all based on liquid nicotine that comes in every flavour under the sun, from tobacco to toffee, from cherry to chocolate.
What is the popularity of these devices?
It's a drop in the ocean compared to the overall tobacco sales, but the central thing is the explosion in interest right now.
My first reaction was how strange to go into a pub and see clouds of smoke once again. But not everyone hails the revolution.
We're in a pub.
Yep.
You've been vaping. Yep. I've had the odd vape. Where can we do this, besides pubs?
By law, we can do it wherever we like, but of course in private establishments like pubs, it's at the discretion of whoever runs the pub.
On what grounds?
Well, they've said that their staff are confused, they don't know whether people are smoking or not. As a society, I suppose, we have to adjust to a new form of behaviour that we're not quite au fait with yet.
It's estimated just over 2 million vapers currently use e-cigarettes in the UK, 3 times the number of 2 years ago.
Well, that was a really interesting experience, and I did learn a lot. What's astonishing is the vast variety, the mind-boggling range of nicotine delivery devices. But in the end, how successful these devices will be, and e-cigarettes will be, will depend on smokers themselves.
BAT was the first tobacco company to launch an e-cigarette in the UK. At its research labs in Southampton, it's committed to harm reduction and is spending £160 million every year on improving new, safer products.
E-cigarettes don't perform particularly well yet, but I'm convinced that with technology they will improve and provide an increasingly consumer acceptable alternative to the traditional cigarette.
British American Tobacco believes nicotine is no more harmful than a cup of coffee.
The safety of nicotine is very similar to caffeine. There are around 100 toxicants in cigarette smoke, and it's those toxicants that are the cause of the real and serious diseases associated with cigarette smoking.
But unlike caffeine, which is only mildly addictive, nicotine can be extremely addictive. Professor Cecil Chandler headed a government inquiry into cigarette packaging. He's one of the country's leading paediatricians and has studied and experienced the effects of nicotine on smokers.
It is very addictive, and it's addictive both psychologically, but it's also addictive biologically, and we now understand far better than we did before the effect, the mechanisms on the brain receptors that lead to that level of addiction. I know personally it's very difficult to give up.
You were a smoker?
I was.
How long did you smoke for?
More than 30 years.
How did a doctor
Indeed.
And a paediatrician
Indeed.
become a lifelong smoker and smoke for 30 years?
Well, if I knew now, if I knew what I know now, I wouldn't have started.
All of the tobacco companies talk in terms of Kodak moments, that the technology changes and either you change as a company to move with this new technology or you risk getting left behind.
So swift has been the rise of e-cigarettes that regulation has still to catch up. The result is a free-for-all, with advertisers having a field day.
Excuse me? You know, you can't smoke in here.
Relax. It's a fucking enjoy.
It's absolutely reminiscent of the heyday of tobacco advertising. It's about lifestyle, it's about being cool, it's about making a statement about yourself. It's the sports sponsorship, the product placement in music videos. This is the stuff of dreams for the tobacco companies. Back on television. We haven't had a tobacco advertisement, or a cigarette advertisement at least, in the UK since 1965. This is an exciting moment if you're a tobacco company. I think it's a more somber moment if you're in public health.
I mean, I'm personally worried about the advertising of them because it might cause confusion in young people's minds about the dangers of cigarette smoking.
I have absolutely no doubt that e-cigarettes are the most brilliant marketing device for tobacco that we've seen in a long, long time. I see e-cigarettes as, if you like, a weapon of mass distraction, a means for the tobacco companies of distracting us from what we actually need to do, and we know we should do, to reduce smoking.
E-lights are at the top of their league and sponsor Worcester Warriors rugby team, who, unfortunately, are at the bottom of theirs. On match day, I talked to one of E-Light's founders, Adrian Everett. He's now a very rich man. Last year, he spent nearly £5 million on marketing and plans to double it this year. Just looking round at all the advertisements for E-lights, and it's going to be on television as well, it's like going back 50 years when you could advertise cigarettes on television.
When you're building a brand for smokers, you need to resonate with smokers.
But you're associating a cigarette, albeit an e-cigarette, with a healthy pastime. Aren't you normalising the habit of smoking?
There have been criticisms of electronic cigarette sponsorships in sports stadia. Because it's such a new market and a new product, one of the fastest ways to reach a larger smoking audience is through sports sponsorship.
But for the tobacco industry, it could be a win-win situation. Advertising its e-cigarettes may attract more vapers, but if vaping does normalise the smoking habit, then that's potentially more customers for their regular brands.
If they show signs through deeds, not just words, that they're moving into these products and they're trying to change their business into a nicotine business that is far, far less harmful to health, then I think that's something that should be cautiously welcomed and taken seriously. I mean, the problem is if you just shut them out of everything and say they're just unequivocally, unambiguously evil, they always have been and they always will be, there's nowhere for them to go.
I spent 20 years trying to stop people smoking and trying to help them. And then all of a sudden, patients who I've prescribed to tablets, nicotine replacements, and gone back to smoking, have come along having stopped with electronic cigarettes.
But are you saying to your patients that these are safe? not just safer, but safe?
I think they're safe.
It's surprising to hear a doctor saying any cigarette is safe. His shop, which opened last year, is an Aladdin's cave of e-cigarette products and all that goes with them.
But you're not using it as a means to stopping smoking then?
I haven't had a fag for a month since I've had it. I've never touched fag since I've had it.
But will you reach the point where you actually stop vaporising, or will you carry on?
I enjoy it.
But isn't the danger that if young people start using these things, we're breeding a whole new generation of nicotine addicts?
I guess that's always a risk, but I haven't seen any evidence of it so far. What I've seen is people stopping and using electronic cigarettes.
No one is more aware of the risks associated with conventional cigarettes than Professor John Britton. He's campaigned against tobacco for years.
E-cigarettes and other nicotine delivery devices that are sort of in development are an immensely powerful potential tool for the good in public health, in my view.
The problem is, it will take many years before we know whether they are really safe or not.
We don't know that, and at the moment the problem with the whole e-cigarette market is the complete lack of regulation, which has the strength on the one hand that it opens the market up to a lot of innovation and development, but on the other hand it's very hard personally to recommend a product if I don't know what's in it. But what we do know about the way that electronic cigarettes work is that they cannot conceivably be as hazardous as tobacco cigarettes.
If e-cigarettes could come in and take half the cigarette market, or perhaps even more, then it would make huge inroads amounting to hundreds of millions of avoided premature deaths. And that would be one of the biggest public health interventions of all time.
They've twisted the evidence in the past, they've tried to consistently undermine policy, and most importantly, they continue to try and maximise profits. So they want to sell their products, cigarettes. And by investing in the e-cigarette market, I don't think we've got any evidence to suggest they're wanting to switch to that entirely. They're wanting people to continue to smoke.
Yes, that's provoked quite a lot of chat, as I knew it would. Rather interesting 2 hours, and I watched both of the 2 hours of that documentary, and a lot of it was to do more with tobacco and talking about places like East Timor, where they've got the highest smoking population in the world, and a packet of cigarettes will cost you about 60p in East Timor, but some of that was just wrong, absolutely wrong. I'm not sure about the doctor having a shop next to his surgery, and it's his shop. I'm not sure if he earns more from the shop than he does being a GP. Don't know. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? I shall watch chat for that and see what they think. And if BAT are at the forefront of the e-cigarette market, then why haven't they got anything apart from a cig-alike on the market? And if they're spending £160 million a year on research, why is there not something like this coming from BAT? Yeah, I don't know. Personally, I'd rather buy them from a company that's not a tobacco company, as I'm sure you all would as well. Yes, I can't say some of the things that are in chat. Let me show you some of the comments that were sent to Kat after she asked for some comments on Facebook. Nigel Churchill, the main message was that the tobacco industry are evil. The tobacco industry are entering the e-cig market, therefore e-cigs will be used for evil. It was guilt by association, not a very sophisticated program. And Anne Fletcher, it was mainly they were making adverts for e-cigs look seductive and they were worried it might start young people smoking. But most of the doctors agree with e-cigs, but they don't know the long-term effects yet. Also about the tobacco industry and their advertising. That's a couple of comments there. And the whole thing about e-lights supporting a rugby team. Well, I would rather e-lights supported a rugby team than some of the payday lenders that support football teams. The ones that charge thousands of percent and people who can't really afford to get the loans, and then can't pay them back. You know, those kind of companies, the ones that the Church of England don't like. I'm not mentioning any names, but you know who you are. What else have we got? Yes, TJ. Improvement by Big Tobacco means adding more chemicals. They have done it with normal ciggies, so could easily see them doing it the same thing with their e-cigs. We have this one. Norbert Zillatron. What bugged me about the interview with the BAT out of, well, he blabbed about how e-cigs still needed much improvement to be a satisfying alternative for more smokers. Okay, it's rather true when you only consider their cigar-like junk. Any competent objective journalist would have inserted here that there is a wide variety of independent products that are already miles ahead, but no, they let this stand uncontested and so promoted the impression that e-cigs in general were still rather useless and experimental. And I'm sure we agree with those comments as well. For me, I would have liked Oliver to have given the journalist Peter something other than a cigar-like, something other than, was it an Enjoy you gave him? Not quite sure. Yes, giving him a Gen 2 or a Gen 3 to try, as opposed to a cigar-like, because it kind of was put out there that that's the kind of stuff that's there. But we all know that there are hundreds, thousands of devices out there that are much better than a cigar-like. And it would also have been nicer to have some more forum information. I mean, you could do a whole hour on e-cigs alone, and maybe they should have done, to get the entire picture, the right picture, a balanced picture, as opposed to the somewhat unbalanced picture that we saw there. Let's have another comment. Fran Lewis. I confess that for the last 12 months since I used e-cigs to stop using tobacco, I too was only thinking about what directly affected me. The programme is right to report the tobacco use in Eastern countries where people can buy one cigarette at a time, a huge issue which enabled me to see outside the box. However, I still believe that governments in Western countries need to back up on e-cig control, leaving us the freedom to choose or purchase our own resources. Not enough was highlighted about addictions being genetic, whatever the drug, and that the desire for the effect of that drug starts about the same time as puberty. It isn't illegal to purchase or use tobacco / e-cig products under 18, only illegal to sell these items to under 18s, to 18s. I think it's important not to confuse and muddy the waters by talking about government revenues in the same breath as liberation or choice. My thoughts simplified. And that was Fran Lewis. And yes, I agree with some of those points as well. It's a difficult one, and it's going to rage on, and hopefully when the SWAF campaign video reaches us, it will go a long way to show exactly what it's all about in a balanced way, because we know that what Andy and SWAF are going to produce is going to be balanced and not as one-sided as this last report was. Let me see what chat's got to say. Yeah, talking about the chap coughing when he tried it. Yeah, he was a non-smoker, yes, yet he wanted to try a nicotine e-cig. Maybe you should have given him something that was zero nic. Don't know. Maybe he's addicted now. Did he have a drink there? Did he have any alcohol, or did he have a coffee? I mean, I had a pint of coffee before I started, so I must be seriously addicted to caffeine, eh? Yeah. What else have we got in there? Disco Des. I think there was some careful editing through the program that gave a very skewed view. Yes, well, my editing on the video, it wasn't completely chronological, but the actual VT itself, yeah, I agree. The editing was very good. It was a very slick 2 hours over the two shows, very slick indeed. But it was a little bit less objective than I hoped it would have been on the e-cig side, for sure. And I'm sure if you watched both 2 hours, and it's worth watching, to be fair, it is a worthwhile watch. You'll just find yourself vaping 45 milligram through it. Although I don't have any of that. I just make my 24. But I did vape a lot through both shows, and of course I was editing them as well, so it made it twice as bad. I've gone over time. I've got 6 minutes to go till 10 o'clock, so I might as well do the hour, since I didn't do a show last week. Don't forget, though, you can tune over to the other channel and watch DE Talk if you are a German speaker. Did I do the Lily Allen story earlier? Let me know, chat. Did I do the Lily Allen story? I might have done. I've got another comment anyway here about the video. Was it that one? Yes, Lloyd. He kept saying the industry when talking about tobacco or e-cigs, as if e-cigs were just a side project of the big tobacco companies, which was annoying. I think it would have gone a lot smoother for vaping if the tobacco industry had stayed well out of it, stuck to their death sticks and left vaping to people who actually gave a about people's health. They have confused people in public health who justifiably hate big tobacco and everything they try and do. Some of them probably still suspect this is all a big scam created by big tobacco to get the past advertising restrictions and the like. That needs to be cleared up. Big tobacco had nothing to do with the conception or evolution of vaping, and are obviously only involved now to try and recoup some of the money that the vaping industry had taken away from them. I believe big tobacco have destroyed vaping altogether if they knew what was going on sooner and had a chance to. They certainly don't represent the vaping industry. They only represent themselves and their own twisted need to make money, no matter how much death and destruction it causes. The bloke from Big Tobacco saying they're all for harm reduction. Yeah, right. If that were true, they'd stop selling tobacco. That would do a great deal more harm reduction than selling a few cigalikes. So that was Lloyd's point of view. And I agree with some of his points as well. A rather contentious issue, as I've said, and it will continue. It certainly will continue. I'm just seeing what was on there. Yes, so that's the end of the show. Vapor Scene on Tuesday the 10th of June 2014. Don't forget, tomorrow night it's not Tin Your Tip. Dave has swapped with Gary, so it's Tin Your Tip on Thursday, but tomorrow it's VT Talk with Dave and Sav, and he'll be reporting back on what he's been up to down in the smoke today, and any other information that can come through between now and then. I'm not too sure who's on the show with Dave, apart from Sav, obviously, but he will let you know tomorrow, and I'm sure if you look at the Twitter feed or our Facebook page, you'll find out around about 6-7 o'clock tomorrow night. So I'm going to head off. I will see you next week, hopefully with some good stuff. Who knows? Hopefully not as contentious next week. Who knows? Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you next week. Have a good week, and I'll probably see you in chat tomorrow night. Tatty bye. Vapor Scene is proudly sponsored by Health E-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and e-liquid.